There is a moment that almost everyone encounters on this path. One day, everything feels astonishingly simple. The mind is quiet, the body feels open. You move through the day without effort. Conversations flow naturally. The world feels strangely intimate. Nothing seems to need fixing. Nothing seems to be missing. You quietly wonder, perhaps this is it. Then, without warning, everything changes. You wake up feeling heavy. Responsibilities return. The inbox is full. Someone says something that stirs an old reaction. The body feels tighter. The mind becomes louder. Thoughts begin racing again. Emotions that seem to have disappeared suddenly return. Frustration, fear, self-doubt, impatience. Almost immediately, the mind reaches the same conclusion. I've lost it. Yesterday I was awake. Now I've fallen backwards. Why can't I stay there? It feels as though two different versions of you are taking turns living your life. One seems peaceful, spacious, and deeply present. The other feels ordinary, reactive, heavy, pulled back into the familiar patterns you thought you had already outgrown. The contrast can feel confusing, even discouraging, because the mind quietly assumes that awakening should move in only one direction: more peace, more clarity, less struggle, forever. But what if that expectation has never been true? What if nothing has actually been lost? What if the changing experience is not evidence that awakening has disappeared, but evidence that it is becoming embodied? Perhaps you are not moving between two different people at all. Perhaps you are discovering that awakening was never meant to lift you out of being human. Perhaps it was always meant to become fully alive within it. Chapter 12 points toward this deeper understanding. Life is not about maintaining one awakened state, but about trusting the rhythm of experience. Some moments invite grounding and the honest weight of being human, while others open into spaciousness and effortless flow. Both belong to the same living field, neither representing progress nor regression. And perhaps that changes everything, because if nothing has gone wrong, there may be nothing left to fix, only a deeper rhythm that the body is just beginning to trust. The mind quietly carries an assumption that almost no one notices. It believes truth should become permanent. Once you awaken, you should stay awakened. Once you find peace, you should never lose it. Once the nervous system begins to regulate, it should remain regulated forever. This expectation feels reasonable because the mind thinks in straight lines. It imagines progress as a ladder. Each step should leave the previous one behind. More awareness, more peace, more freedom, always moving upward. But life has never moved that way. Everything living moves in rhythms. The lungs expand, then soften. The heart contracts, then releases. Day becomes night. Winter becomes spring. The tide advances before quietly returning to the sea. Growth itself is rhythmic. Nothing in nature remains permanently expanded. Nothing remains permanently contracted. Both movements belong to the same living intelligence. Yet the mind continues searching for a version of awakening that never changes. It mistakes consistency for truth. So when heaviness returns, when grief appears, when uncertainty visits, when the body asks for rest instead of inspiration, the mind immediately assumes something has gone wrong. It begins measuring, comparing, questioning. I was more present yesterday. Why has this feeling returned? Have I lost what I found? But perhaps what has disappeared is not presence. Perhaps only the experience has changed. Presence itself has never demanded that every moment feel light. In fact, the deeper awakening becomes embodied, the less interested it is in preserving any particular state. the body begins discovering something the mind cannot easily understand. Groundedness and spaciousness are not opposites. Neither are stillness and movement, neither are emptiness and form. Each gives meaning to the other. Without gravity, lightness has nowhere to express itself. Without lightness, gravity becomes burden. Chapter 12 describes this as the dance between nothing and everything. Emptiness does not replace form, and form does not obscure emptiness. They continually reveal one another through movement, allowing life to be lived as paradox rather than resolved into certainty. The nervous system slowly begins trusting this rhythm. Some days invite openness. Conversation flows effortlessly. The body feels transparent. Action happens without effort. Other days ask for something entirely different, to become rooted, to feel the weight of responsibility, to sit with uncomfortable emotions, to remain present while life asks more of you than yesterday. Neither day is more awakened, neither day is further from truth. They are simply different expressions of the same intelligence moving through different conditions. The suffering has never come from movement itself. The suffering begins when the mind insists that one movement should remain while the other disappears. It resists gravity because it prefers lightness. It resists contraction because it remembers expansion. It resists ordinary humanity because it has become attached to extraordinary experiences. But awakening is not learning how to remain in one side of the paradox. It is learning to trust both, to allow density without believing you have fallen asleep, to allow spaciousness without trying to hold on to it, to discover that truth is present in both movements equally. Perhaps this is why life keeps changing, not to take your peace away, but to teach the body that peace was never dependent on experience remaining the same. Eventually, something profound begins to settle. You stop asking life to remain light. You stop fearing its moments of gravity, and without noticing exactly when it happened, you begin trusting the rhythm more than the state. That is where paradox stops being an idea and quietly becomes the way you live. Something remarkable begins to happen when the body no longer insists that one experience is more spiritual than another. Life becomes astonishingly simple, not because life itself becomes easier, but because you stop arguing with the way it unfolds. For much of life, the mind quietly divides experience into categories. This is a good day. That is a bad day. This is spiritual. That is ordinary. This feeling belongs. That feeling should not be here. Every moment is measured against an invisible standard of how awakening is supposed to look. If meditation feels peaceful, you believe you are progressing. If frustration appears during a difficult conversation, you wonder whether you've somehow fallen backwards. If love flows easily, you trust yourself. If fear returns, you begin questioning everything. The experience itself is rarely the problem. It is the interpretation that creates suffering, because every changing feeling becomes evidence for or against an identity the mind is still trying to protect. But eventually, something very quiet begins to reorganize. You stop asking, "What state am I in?" and you begin asking, "What is this moment asking of me?" That single shift changes the entire texture of daily life. Some conversations require extraordinary gentleness. Someone sitting across from you may not need advice. They may simply need a nervous system that is not trying to fix them. At other times, life asks for unmistakable clarity, a difficult decision, a healthy boundary, an honest conversation that cannot be postponed any longer. Presence does not always appear as softness. Sometimes it appears as precision. Sometimes it appears as courage. Sometimes it says no. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it speaks immediately. Sometimes it remains completely silent. The difference is no longer found in the behavior. It is found in the absence of inner resistance while the behavior unfolds. Relationships begin changing in ways that often surprise you. You stop trying to appear conscious. You stop monitoring yourself. You stop wondering whether you are responding in the most spiritual way. Instead, you become available to listen fully, available to laugh without guilt, available to cry without embarrassment, available to admit you don't know. People begin feeling less managed around you because you are no longer managing yourself. The conversation becomes real, not perfect, real. Work begins changing as well. Responsibility no longer feels like the opposite of presence. You discover that fully answering emails can be meditation. Building a business can be meditation. Parenting can be meditation. Washing dishes can be meditation. Not because the activity itself is sacred, but because separation between sacred and ordinary quietly disappears. Nothing has to look spiritual for it to arise from being. Serious situations no longer require inner contraction. Urgency no longer demands anxiety. You may work intensely while remaining deeply relaxed. You may solve difficult problems without carrying their emotional weight home inside your body. Action becomes cleaner because identity is no longer entangled with the outcome. Even emotions begin behaving differently. Sadness still comes, anger still appears, grief still moves through the body, joy still arrives unexpectedly. But none of them need to become a personal story. None of them need to prove anything about who you are. They become movements. Weather passing through an open sky. The body feels them fully, then allows them to continue, without grasping, without resisting, without turning temporary experience into permanent identity. This is where embodiment quietly matures. The body begins listening more carefully than the mind ever could. It senses when to soften, when to root deeply, when to yield, when to stand firmly, when to rest, when to move. There is no formula, no fixed identity to maintain, only responsiveness. Chapter 12 describes this as the body's growing sensitivity to the rhythm of experience. Gravity teaches humility and belonging. Lightness teaches freedom and release. Together they form a dynamic balance that is never fixed, yet never lost, because presence is not something to hold. It is something that moves. Perhaps this is what maturity actually looks like, not becoming someone who remains permanently peaceful, but becoming someone who no longer needs life to look a certain way in order to remain present. Life stops becoming a test of your awakening. It becomes the place where awakening quietly lives, not by remaining above experience, but by participating completely within it. And in that participation, the one who is trying to maintain presence slowly disappears. What remains is life itself, responding to life without resistance. There comes a point where awakening becomes far less about what the mind understands and far more about what the body trusts. In the beginning, much of the journey feels like learning, new insights, new perspectives, new ways of seeing yourself and the world. The mind naturally asks, what have I realized? What do I still need to understand? How do I keep this experience from disappearing? But eventually those questions begin to lose their urgency, not because they have all been answered, but because the body has started asking a different question altogether. Very quietly, almost beneath thought, it asks, what is this moment asking of me? That question changes everything because it no longer assumes there is one correct way to be. It assumes only that life is alive and living things move. Some mornings the body asks for stillness, not because you are avoiding life, but because stillness is how life is restoring itself. Other days it asks for movement, to walk, to build, to create, to serve. Neither is better. Neither is evidence of greater consciousness. They are simply different expressions of the same intelligence. Sometimes the body opens through laughter, sometimes through tears, sometimes through deep silence that cannot be explained, sometimes through wholehearted participation in the ordinary tasks of the day. The mind would like a rule, a technique, a reliable formula. The body discovers rhythm instead. It begins recognizing that regulation is not remaining still, it is remaining responsive, like a tree that bends with the wind instead of resisting it, like the ocean that never apologizes for its tides, like breathing itself, always expanding, always releasing, never becoming trapped in either movement. This is why deeper embodiment feels surprisingly natural. You stop trying to maintain yourself. You start trusting yourself, not the personality, not the thinking mind, but the deeper intelligence already moving through the nervous system when it is no longer interrupted by constant self-management. There is a profound humility in this. You discover that gravity has its own wisdom. Gravity brings you back into the body, into your humanity, into responsibility, into relationship, into the beautiful weight of living an ordinary life. It reminds you that awakening is not an escape from form, it is an intimacy with it. And lightness carries its own wisdom as well. It reminds you that nothing needs to be carried forever, that control can soften, that identity can loosen, that life often moves more gracefully when you stop trying to direct every step. Gravity teaches belonging. Lightness teaches freedom. One roots you into the earth. The other opens you to the infinite. Without gravity, spirituality easily becomes escape. Without lightness, humanity easily becomes burden. Together, they create balance, not a balance that remains fixed, but one that continually adjusts with every changing moment. Chapter 12 describes this mature embodiment as the body's growing sensitivity to when it needs to soften and when it needs to root, when to yield and when to stand. Gravity teaches humility and belonging. Lightness teaches freedom and release. Together they form a living balance that is never fixed, yet never lost, because presence itself is always moving. Perhaps this is what the nervous system has been learning all along. Not how to remain permanently light, not how to avoid life's gravity, but how to trust both completely, to stop resisting whichever movement appears, to let the body become the place where paradox is no longer understood, but lived, where nothing needs to be forced, nothing needs to be preserved, and life expresses itself exactly as it is, with effortless participation in the endless dance between lightness and gravity. Close, slowly. Perhaps you were never meant to arrive at a version of yourself that never changes. Perhaps life has never been asking you to remain permanently peaceful. Perhaps it has only been inviting you to stop resisting the movement that has always been here. Perhaps peace was never something you needed to hold. Perhaps it was something that quietly remained, even while experience continued to change. Perhaps awakening has never depended on becoming lighter and lighter. Perhaps it has always included the courage to become completely human, to welcome joy without clinging to it, to meet sorrow without fearing it, to carry responsibility without becoming burdened, to rest without feeling guilty, to act without becoming driven, to be fully engaged without ever leaving the stillness that quietly lives beneath every experience. Perhaps this has been the hidden gift of paradox all along, not choosing between emptiness and form, not escaping gravity in search of endless lightness, but discovering that both have always belonged to the same living intelligence. Weight and openness, stillness and movement, rest and action, silence and expression, each arriving exactly when life asks for it, nothing needing to replace the other, nothing needing to remain forever. Maybe mastery has never meant remaining in one beautiful state. Maybe mastery is discovering that truth does not disappear when the experience changes. It remains quietly beneath every changing season of your life. Chapter 12 reminds us that living as lightness and gravity is allowing the body to move between density and spaciousness without resistance, trusting that nothing needs to be stabilized for truth to remain present. Life reveals its mastery not through control, but through effortless participation in the endless movement between nothing and everything. So perhaps there is nothing left to maintain, nothing left to preserve, nothing left to become, only this moment, exactly as it is. Lightness, gravity, stillness, movement, breathing in, breathing out, life, quietly, living itself through you. And perhaps that has been enough all along.